thing in Del Monte as well. So, there it is. So, see it a little bit better that way. So, yeah, California doesn't look like that. Neither does the Philippines, for obvious. Okay, next. You're eating pork adobo right now. Lee and parents wanted you to eat pork adobo as well, but finish it off with a bit of 2 tablespoons, in fact, of Lee and parents right at the end. So it's basically a boiled, braised, fried dish, and then you reduce the sauce down at the end. And this recipe for Lee and parents was saying at the end of the dish, at the end of the cooking process, finish it, or au monté as they would say in French, with 2 tablespoons of Lee and parents. So basically throw the entire taste combination off by adding a whole bunch of salt. So, okay. I think we're just, is there a question?
No, I said interesting.
Yeah, right? Yeah, Lee and parents and adobo. Inherently, adobo is basically a simple combination of vinegar, bay leaves, soy sauce, peppercorns, garlic. That's all you need for it. And there are different variations where you go in the country. Some places will include coconut milk because that's the coconut region. Some places will include pepper because that's the pepper region. It's just like chili in the US. But you will never see someone throw Lee and parents into their adobo marinade or to finish the sauce off at the end. Okay? There's another advertisement I wanted to present as well. And this is a co-option of a bit of American advertising as well. You put a easily identifiable Filipino woman in the middle of items that denote modernism and modernity and the 1920s. You have a Filipino woman driving a car, and she says, the advertisement says, radiant beauty, the kind of beauty that can only be obtained through perfect health, the kind of health that comes from Horlicks malted milk. Horlicks malted milk because Horlicks contains these elements, the proteins, the mineral salts, again, they're obsessed with nutrition. So necessary for perfect health and so often lacking in our daily food. Again, another snub, a snub of Filipino food. I thought it's been around for forever. Why is it lacking in nutrients? For better health, for radiant beauty, drink Horlicks malted milk. Horlicks will put the glow of health in your cheeks and a sparkle in your eye. So then there's the appeal for beauty, right? The last one's the hint for the appeal for beauty. But that's nothing compared to this next ad, which is the ultimate appeal for beauty, and it will make your head spin when you see it. So an appeal for beauty and for a Filipino population showing, is that a Filipino woman there? No, yeah, not at all. No, she's very much a Shirley Temple kind of person. But the thing that's really crazy about this isn't an American company that's making this advertisement. Magnolia Ice Cream is a Filipino-owned company, and it's probably the largest company in the Philippines that's not called San Miguel. So it exists to today. It'd be like Procter & Gamble advertising this way. So read the text. Beauty without health is impossible. And I've proved from experience that Magnolia Ice Cream contains so many of the essentials of a well-balanced diet that health and beauty comes naturally to those who eat it regularly. But the real zinger is at the lead. My complexion cream is none other than the Magnolia Ice Cream. Right? So, yeah. It's also that, and that's part of the idea about imperialism and the ideas of how you're supposed to present yourself in the American Empire. Not supposed to be supposed to be a light-skinned Filipino for one. Hopefully you're a light-skinned Filipino with some kind of Spanish heritage in the past, because then you've been part of the power structure for a longer time. Right? It's a really good question, actually. But yeah, Magnolia Ice Cream. Showing a little bit of empire through ice cream. But what about the lower classes? Like, we've seen how people are eating in restaurants. We've seen how people who could afford consumer goods imported from abroad were eating. How about the lower classes? There's 2 answers to that. First is, they transformed the agricultural production of the country. Like, it moved away from sustainable agriculture towards cash crops. And the second thing is that they started to adjust their own cooking for American nutrition, hygiene, and sanitation. So what we've got here is a picture of hemp. This is a photograph of a hemp plant. Hemp became the main ingredient for making abaca, and abaca was used for making shipping rope. And prior to 1898, it was the #1 export out of the Philippines. The Spanish used it for their galleons, and they used it and exported it abroad for those that were shipping around Southeast Asia. Let's see. This is a picture of a coffee plant. Coffee was the 5th largest export out of the Philippines. It came to plight in the 1980s, but then, or the 1880s, and then came back into prominence, but never at the same levels after the American period began in 1898. Next is some rice paddies. So rice is the staple. You know, I mean, four giant tubs of rice that we ordered today. 3. Yeah. 4. I would have eaten the 4th by myself. But yeah, rice is, and it's the staple food of the country. And the last picture is of bananas. These were all huge exports out of the country prior to the American period. When the Americans came, all that flipped. It became all about sugar, and it became all about coconuts. So, look at that. See, there's a sugar cane. By the way, for extra credit, does anyone know where these photos were taken? Yep, yeah, just up this, what, 5 minutes away in the Botanic Garden. So yeah, I was very, very excited to realize that this is all within walking distance. So yeah, and this is a sugar cane, and this is an image or a graph of just how much sugar increased in trade in the Philippines. In 1900, it was less than 275, what's it, 1,000 million? But yeah, the important thing is that it multiplies by a factor of 78. So it becomes huge, it becomes the most important thing that's being exported out of the Philippines. And then the next image will show you just how much sugar was taking over the country. All the areas in black are the most densely cultivated areas for sugar. Like this island right here, Negros Occidental, next to that, Negros Oriental, these 2 islands right here. They're the richest islands in the Philippines precisely because so much money was going in there for sugar. So you have sugar barons there. You basically have a culture that used to exist in the US in the early 19th century still exists in the Philippines as late as the late 20th. And we're talking about like basically sharecropping. It still exists there. There's a huge investment by American companies to bring in sugar processing mills and sugar distillation and get all of the sugar pumping out so that it goes to markets in Europe and markets in the United States. And the most important thing is the markets in the United States get advantageous prices because they have all this trade barriers and trade tariffs that are set up to favor American consumers. So the Philippines is basically supporting an American sugar habit at the expense of what they used to make before: rice, bananas, produce, self-sustainable agriculture. All that stuff is gone. Next image will show what happens with coconuts. And you think coconuts, you're like, oh, okay, that's edible, right? Like, we all love coconuts. Like, I had a coconut curry last night. It's wonderful. This coconut isn't for consumption. The coconuts are used for oil. And they're used to make, not cooking oil, but like oil that drives engines. So entire parts of the country are completely taken over by coconut plantations, particularly in the south. So before all this, there's gnarlwood. There's a bunch of old growth forests that are all over the south down here because it's very, very close in the same tropical region as the rubber plants are in Malaysia. All that's cleared out so that you could grow up, so that you could raise coconut trees. And the coconuts are strictly made for export of fuels that would be used to drive engines in the United States. So whatever kind of agricultural structure was there before is completely decimated so that you can make money by trading with the United States. Okay? So it's kind of messed up, right? Production's kind of thrown off. Consumption is also thrown off as well. And let's see. Oh, sorry. The other thing that's thrown off as well is the interior of the Philippines as well. There's railroads that are set up all over. There's a railroad line that connects all of the hinterlands where all of this different kinds of cultivation are going for sugar and for coconut back into Manila so that they could export and do trade abroad. Okay? Now, sorry. There we go. Consumption. So not only are our menus changing, not only are advertisements changing, cookbooks and recipes are changing as well. This is a pamphlet that was published by the Philippine Bureau of Education in 1916. It's called Housekeeping, and it was mandatory for all teachers teaching home economics and domestic science in the Philippines. And the idea here is that you would get Filipino recipes in line with American concepts of hygiene and sanitation and meal preparation. So people weren't just doing things as they wanted to. There was a standardized way of doing it, and Filipinos would learn how to cook like Americans, using Filipino dishes as well. One of the recipes that's included is pancit, which we all have tonight. And here's the recipe that they have up there. I decided to tweak it a bit for the demonstration that we're going to give here. And if you fast forward, that's what mine looks like. It's simplified. I have a short attention span for reading long directions, so whenever I'm writing out recipes, I put down the measurements on the right, and on the left, which method is going to be used. So the first one is soak, second is saute, third is garnish, and pretty much you figure it out along the way. So I'll do the cooking demo now to close, and then we'll talk and take questions afterwards. So what we've got here, bog standard dish. This is a dish that got me through college whenever I was poor, and grad school when I was even more poor. So we've got lemons to garnish. We've got celery and carrots for the root veg. This is also used in a lot of French and European cuisine for what's called a mirepoix. So it's just cheap root vegetables that give like a very earthy base. We've got an onion, 2 eggs, and some secret ingredients at the end that I'm going to use for demonstration purposes. Let's see.
Alex, I have a question.
Yes.
Given the geographical proximity to China, not to say anything about other countries, how come there was no Chinese influence in terms of cuisine? And also, Muslims were in Mindanao in the 8th century. Mm-hmm. Was there any Muslim influence on the cuisine of the Philippines?
There is as well, and those are 2 other dishes that would take a much longer time to cook because the Muslim one is a dish called kare kare, which shares the same etymological root with curry, and it's basically like a slow peanut stew made of ground peanuts, and usually served with goat